Hello and welcome to another brand new edition of World Panorama, where we get you a weekly update of all that's taking place across the globe. I'm Teena Jha. First up, the top stories of the week. G20 summit in Buenos Aires. India holds tripartite meets with China and Russia, America and Japan. France raises the situation in Syria with Russia. Attacks on 3 Ukraine shipping vessels deepen rift with Russia. Russian President Vladimir Putin accuses Ukraine President Petro Poroshenko of increasing tensions ahead of Ukrainian elections. And 41st US President George Bush Sr. passes away in Houston at the age of 94, shepherded America through the fall of the Soviet Union and the Iraq War. Our top story this week is, of course, from the 13th G20 summit being held in Buenos Aires in Argentina. World leaders held the 2-day session with many disputes and disagreements on the table. Host President Argentina's Mauricio Macri said the solution was dialogue and called for a clear message of shared responsibility. US President Donald Trump, however, cancelled his meeting with Russia's Vladimir Putin over Ukraine. Huge differences also remained on climate change, trade and the Khashoggi affair. The G20, made up of 19 of the world's most industrialized nations plus the EU, accounts for 85% of the world's economic output and 2/3 of the world's population. Earlier on Friday, on the sidelines of the summit, first ever Japan-America-India trilateral meeting was held. Prime Minister Modi, US President Donald Trump and Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe exchanged views on the Indo-Pacific, maritime and connectivity issues at the meet. India underscored its firm commitment to make the Indo-Pacific a region for shared economic growth. Ahead of the meeting, Prime Minister Modi said the partnership between the 3 countries will play a major role for world peace and prosperity. US President Donald Trump said the ties with India are stronger than ever before. The 3 leaders said such meetings should continue in the future on the sidelines of subsequent G20 meetings.
ये एक बहुत बड़ा अच्छा अवसर है कि लोकतांत्रिक मूल्यों को समर्पित अमेरिका, जापान और भारत तीनों मिलकर के विश्व में शांति, समृद्धि और स्थिरता के संबंध में हम मिलकर के क्या भूमिका अदा कर सकते हैं। मेरे लिए खुशी की बात है कि दोनों देश हमारे स्ट्रेटेजिक पार्टनर रहे हैं, दोनों मेरे अच्छे मित्र रहे। इन तीनों के साथ हमारा मिलकर के काम करना अपने आप में एक सुहाना अवसर है।
The relationships between our 3 countries extremely good, extremely strong. I think with India maybe stronger than ever, and with Japan I think stronger than ever. We're doing very well together. We're doing a lot of trade together. We're doing a lot of defense together, a lot of military purchases.
Japan, the US, and India share fundamental values and strategic interests, and I certainly hope to further reinforce our trilateral partnership and to continuing our close cooperation toward realizing a free and open Indo-Pacific. By having 3 of us working together, will bring more prosperity and more stability in the region as well as globally.
Also in Argentina, the second Russia-India-China trilateral summit or RIC was held after a gap of 12 years. Prime Minister Modi held the meeting with Chinese President Xi Jinping and Russian President Vladimir Putin to deepen engagements with India's valued development partners. A wide range of subjects to further cement friendship between the countries and also enhance world peace and stability were discussed at the meet.
आरआईसी में हमें 4 पहलुओं पर काम करना चाहिए, जो है क्षेत्रीय और ग्लोबल स्टेबिलिटी, इकोनॉमिक प्रॉस्पेरिटी, पारस्परिक हित के विषयों में एक्सपीरियंस शेयरिंग और नए और उभरते चैलेंजेस के उपायों पर सहयोग। और मैं राष्ट्रपति पुतिन की इस बात से सहमत हूं कि हमने इंटरनेशनल फोरम की किसी भी मीटिंग में जब मिलते हैं तो हमारे इस फोरम का हमने मिलने का एक रेगुलर बना देना चाहिए.
For more on that big story from across the globe, we're being joined on World Panorama by Mr. Ashok Sajjanhar, former diplomat. Sir, thank you for joining us on Rajya Sabha TV. The G20 summit, sir, this year began amid huge differences over key issues like trade, climate change, Khashoggi murder, also the crisis in Ukraine. What do you feel it achieved so far?
Well, I think we still have to wait and see as to what the final declaration is going to be.
Yes.
But you are very right, Teena, when you say that the summit this year has come in the wake of great uncertainty, unpredictability as far as, and great stress and tension amongst major powers. And I think the challenge for all countries concerned, particularly the big countries, will be to see how they are able to bridge the divide, how they're able to bridge the gap, and what is the message that they are sending out to the countries, the rest of the countries. Because, you know, we call it the G20, there are 19 countries, that means there are about 174 other countries outside this grouping. So I think we need to send out, these countries need to send out a positive message. You said it accounts for 85% of the global output, but it also accounts for 75% of world trade. And it also accounts for about half of the territorial area as far as the world is concerned. So I think on these issues of trade, particularly the US-China trade war that has been going on for quite some time, and that has had implications and repercussions not only for China but for a large number of other countries. So that, of course, the discussions will take place over dinner between...
So do you see a breakthrough in the spiraling trade war between the two largest economies in the world?
A big question, but you know, I will put my own speculation as to how it is. You know, this problem of trade war, it is not a technical trade war, it's also a technology war. It's also a war for dominance, global dominance. China's attempt to replace the United States. So I think this trade war per se is going to continue, but I have a feeling that to send a good message to the international trading community, to the businesses, etc., there could be some sort of a ceasefire that could be announced as a result of the dinner tonight, particularly the fact that what America had announced, what America had threatened, that on $200 billion they are going to enhance, they are going to increase the penalty tariff from 10% to 25% from 1st January. So that might go a little bit, you know, after a few months it might come, and they might say that both the sides might say that we are going to start talks on this to resolve the issue.
Talking about India, sir, Prime Minister Modi has given a 9-point agenda to bring economic offenders to book. What do you think, what does it say about the significance that India attaches to it?
Great significance, and I think right from the very beginning, 2004, when Prime Minister Modi first went to this meeting, his focus has been on tax evasion, on economic offenders, on black money, how to get black money. And I think there is getting increased recognition by all the countries concerned that we need to do something about it. Also in the fact that, the Financial Action Task Force has been working in this direction in terms of dealing with both money laundering and also money going for, which is being siphoned out towards terrorist actions. And they should be able to come on the same page to ensure that there is accountability and funding resources are not used for such purposes. And economic offenders are, all countries work together to deal with the economic offenders.
Certainly. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us on the show with those vital details.
Thank you.
Moving on, as we told you, there's been a dramatic rise in Russia-Ukraine tensions after Russian Coast Guard ships fired on the Ukrainian Navy vessels off the Crimea coast. Ukraine called it an act of aggression, but Russia said the ships had illegally entered its waters. Ukrainian President Petro Poroshenko says his country is under threat of full-fledged war with Russia and also imposed martial law in parts of the country.
Tensions between neighbors Russia and Ukraine escalated this week after a weekend naval confrontation off the disputed Crimean Peninsula in which Russia fired on and seized 3 Ukrainian vessels. Russia and Ukraine blamed each other in the dispute, with Ukraine calling it an act of aggression while Moscow accused the sailors of illegally entering its territorial waters. Ukraine President Poroshenko says his country was under threat of full-fledged war with Russia, adding he tried to contact Russian President Vladimir Putin but did not get any response from Kremlin.
Immediately at night, I ordered a phone conversation with the President of Russia, Putin. We did not receive response and I had to address to the German Chancellor so that she can talk to Putin on immediate release of Ukrainian servicemen and Ukrainian ships.
A court in Crimea has ordered the first of 24 Ukrainian Navy sailors captured by Russia to be detained for 2 months. The incident has further ratcheted up tensions even since Moscow annexed Crimea in 2014 and threw its weight behind separatists in eastern Ukraine. After the incident, Ukraine's parliament voted on Monday to impose martial law in parts of the country to fight what its president called growing aggression from Moscow, something the country did not do even during the worst of the fighting in the east that killed about 10,000 people. The introduction of martial law includes measures like a partial mobilizing and strengthening of air defenses, strengthening anti-terrorism measures and information security.
З 9 години ранку 20
Russia has been conducted hybrid war against our country for the 5th year, but by attacking Ukrainian military boats, it moved on to a new stage of aggression.
The US has blamed Russia for what it called unlawful conduct over Sunday's incident in the Black Sea. Also in New York, the United Nations Security Council met to discuss the crisis but failed to agree a Russian proposed agenda amid sharp disagreements between Moscow and the West. Nikki Haley, the US ambassador to United Nations, accused Russia of taking outlaw actions against Ukrainian ships and vowed that sanctions punishing Russia's annexation of Crimea would continue.
Sunday's outrageous violation of sovereign Ukrainian territory is part of a pattern of Russian behavior that includes the purported annexation of Crimea and abuses against countless Ukrainians in Crimea, as well as stoking conflict that has taken the lives of more than 10,000 people in eastern Ukraine. And it shows no sign of decreasing.
Meanwhile, US President Donald Trump had cancelled planned G20 talks with the Russian President Vladimir Putin amid growing Ukraine tensions. However, Russia has termed Trump's decision to cancel talks with Putin as regrettable.
And one of the things that we would like to see take place is our European allies doing more to assist Ukraine. The United States government has taken a very strong position in their support. In support of Ukraine. We would like other countries to do more as well.
Western leaders and diplomats have urged both sides to de-escalate the conflict.
The incident is largely due to the significant remilitarization of the region and will only serve to make tension worse, and we would like all sides to show restraint. Chancellor Angela Merkel has spoken by phone with Russian President Putin and Ukrainian President Poroshenko to press once again for a de-escalation. We won't let up in these efforts.
We are very concerned because this is an attack, a dispute which has the potential to get more dangerous.
The incident took place at the Kerch Strait, which separates the Black Sea from the Sea of Azov. Ukraine said its vessels were heading to the Sea of Azov in line with international maritime rules. Russia charged that they had failed to obtain permission to pass through the narrow strait. That is spanned by a 19-kilometer bridge that Russia completed this year. A 2003 treaty designates the Kerch Strait and the Sea of Azov as shared territorial waters. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
And moving on to Sri Lanka, where the parliament has voted to block any spending by Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapakse's office. The parliament has also barred ministers and their private staff from using state funds. Meanwhile, the country's military chief was also remanded by a Sri Lankan court after weeks of evading arrest over the alleged cover-up of the murder of 11 people during the island's civil war.
Sri Lanka's parliament passed a motion to cut the personal budget of Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa, who refused to step down despite losing the confidence vote twice. Lawmakers backing Rajapaksa boycotted the vote that was passed 123 to none in the 225-member parliament. They declared the voting illegal and questioned the speaker's impartiality. The motion prevents Rajapaksa from using government money for his day-to-day expenses as Prime Minister. The island has been in crisis since October 26, when the president sacked Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe and replaced him with Rajapaksa, a former leader. Wickremesinghe has refused to stand aside and commands a majority in parliament, which has twice voted against Rajapaksa's leadership and demanded he vacate the top office. In another development in Sri Lanka, country's top military officer was remanded in custody on November 28 on charges of covering up Civil War-era murders. Chief of Defence Staff Ravindra Vijayagunaratne appeared in court after warrants for his arrest were issued. Prosecutors said he protected the main suspect, a naval intelligence officer, who allegedly murdered 11 young men in the final stages of the conflict with separatist Tamil rebels in 2008 and 9. The officer, Admiral Vijayagunaratne, denied the allegations. Tens of thousands of Tamils and the rebel leadership were killed at the end of the conflict, in which both sides were accused of atrocities. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
In Britain, 7 ministers resigned this week from the Theresa May government over Brexit. The latest was Sam Gyimah, the university's minister, who resigned in protest against May's Brexit plan. Pledging to vote against it, he said a second referendum could be the most sensible path for both Leave and Remain supporters. May's Brexit plan comes up for vote in Parliament on 11th December. British Prime Minister Theresa May has refused to rule out a no-deal Brexit if UK MPs reject the deal agreed with the European Union.
But no, what is clear is that any extension to Article 50, anything like that, reopens the negotiations, reopens the deal. And at that point, the deal can go, frankly, in any direction.
May was questioned by the Commons Liaison Committee, made up of the chairs of all select committees. MPs pressed her repeatedly on the issue, amid Bank of England warnings it could trigger a recession worse than the 2008 financial crisis.
So is that what you have been explicitly told? I'm sorry, I must move on in a minute to other colleagues, but I think that's a really important point. Have you been told by the European Union that you would have to reopen negotiations were you to hold a referendum based on your deal to ask the British people whether this is what they meant by Brexit? Is this their informed consent?
What is very clear and what has been made clear is that this is the deal that they have negotiated with the European Union. So any suggestion of that deal might be rejected. I still come back to the point that actually I think the most important reason why we should not be going down the route of a second referendum is that we asked the British people, they've given us their view, and we should deliver on that view. There are different views as to how we should deliver on that view, but I believe that we should deliver on it.
May said that if MPs voted down her deal in December, then obviously decisions would have to be taken and no deal planning would be stepped up. Labour Party leader Jeremy Corbyn said MPs would not allow a no-deal Brexit.
Could we at least look at a certain past and ask, what have you learned from these negotiations, given that we're now only about halfway through anyway?
I'm not sure it's something that I've learnt specifically from these negotiations, because obviously I was involved in certain negotiations with the EU when I was Home Secretary. I think what has been reinforced by these negotiations is that actually if we are rigorous and robust in our defence of our position, then we can change the view in the European Union. I think one of the best examples of that is what I've just been talking about. They started off saying you can only be Norway or Canada for GB, but actually now they've accepted an ambitious customs relationship, a trade relationship that is beyond anything that any other advanced economy has with them.
May described calls for another referendum or delaying March 29 departure date as attempts to frustrate Brexit. She told the committee the only deal on offer was the one she had negotiated with the European Union. Labour is hoping to force a general election or failing that another referendum, if as is currently widely expected. MPs reject May's deal. She refused to speculate about what she would do if MPs reject her Brexit deal on the 11th of December, saying she wanted MPs to focus on the choice that lies in front of them and ignore other potential options. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV. Former US President George H.W. Bush has died at the age of 94. According to a statement by the family members, George Bush Sr. passed away on Friday evening. President Bush was suffering from Parkinson's disease that forced him to use a wheelchair in recent years, and he had been in and out of hospitals in recent months as his health declined. President Bush was the 41st US president between 1989 and 1993, after serving 2 terms as vice president to Ronald Reagan. George W. Bush called his father a man of the highest character and the best dad. US President Donald Trump condoled his passing away. And some more international updates in the Globe Watch. A suspected serial killer who claims to have committed some 90 murders made a court appearance on Monday in the 1994 killing of a Texas woman. Samuel Little made his first court appearance for a hearing in the killing of Denise Christine Brothers 24 years ago. Samuel is already serving a life sentence for murdering 3 women in California. Prosecutors say he has confessed to the murder. He's also confessed to as many as 90 other murders in numerous states across the country. It would make him the most prolific serial killer in US history. The UK government has confirmed an amendment to a new weapons bill going through the parliament to ensure that it would not impact the right of the British Sikh community to possess and supply kirpans or religious swords. The Offensive Weapons Bill 2018 completed its various readings in the House of Commons this week and has now moved to the House of Lords for approval. A South Korean train crossed into North Korea for the first time in a decade on Friday as the 2 countries began an 18-day joint study on cross-border railways. This will be the first step towards modernizing and connecting the Korea's railroads. The train, which carries dozens of officials and engineers from both Koreas, is set to inspect 1,200 kilometers of railway track in the eastern and western parts of North Korea through 18 December. Some sports news now in Sports Wrap. Paris Saint-Germain defeated Liverpool 2-1 in the group stage of the Champions League to put themselves in a great position to qualify. Juan Bernat scored the opener for PSG in the 13th minute, after which Neymar doubled the lead from close range in the 37th minute. For Liverpool, James Milner scored a goal just before the half-time through a penalty kick, but it was not enough for Liverpool as they lost the game 1-2 to PSG. Cameroon was stripped of the right to stage the 2019 African Nations Cup finals. The Confederation of African Football confirmed the unanimous decision after a meeting of its executive committee in Accra. According to the CF executive committee member, the new host is expected to be named before the end of this year. Cameroon's ability to host the finals was first questioned when CAF announced in July last year that only countries capable of putting on world-class tournament with complete facilities and extensive infrastructure would be allowed to stage the event. The International Olympic Committee has put planning for the Tokyo 2020 boxing tournament on hold in a move that could see the governing body, International Boxing Association, frozen out of the games over a governance dispute. The IOC said in a statement that it had launched an investigation into the International Boxing Association after it submitted a progress report focusing on governance, financial management and sporting integrity. Despite its concerns, the IOC said it remained determined to feature boxing at Tokyo 2020. Norwegian Magnus Carlsen won the World Chess Championship for a fourth time after winning 3 tiebreakers against US rival and world number 2 Fabiano Caruana. Carlsen has been the world's top-ranked player for the past 8 years and has now defended his title 3 times since he first won it in 2013 by beating Indian Grandmaster Vishwanathan Anand. This year was the first time the Norwegian had won the championship without losing a single game. And finally, the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, or NASA, safely touched down its InSight spacecraft on the surface of planet Mars on 26 November after a journey of 548 million kilometers from Earth. It is the first robotic lander designed to study the deep interior of a distant world with instruments to detect planetary seismic rumblings never measured anywhere but on Earth. It will also collect data to unlock mysteries about how Mars was formed. The InSight spacecraft took 6 months to arrive on Mars and will now spend the next 687 Earth days on the red planet. We leave you with visuals of the spacecraft. Thanks for your time.